New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Welcome to Ministers Talking a weekly program where Rev BRZ and Rev Z and their guests chat about current affairs, world events, spiritual principles, and any old they want to talk about. Based on the New Thought philosophy and ancient wisdoms, Ministers Talking shares a visionary perspective of the evolving spiral called spiritual living. Join us each week as we explore the emerging paradigm of life on planet Earth and beyond.
And good morning, dear ones. Dr. Robert with you over here.
Rev Z over here.
And this is Ministers Talking Shit for Friday the 10th? The 10th. Oh my God, it's halfway through, third of the way through April already.
It's 11th.
April 10th.
Today's the 11th.
Today's the 11th.
April
All right.
11th. Yeah, it's moving at warp speed, baby.
You know, I guess that's what happens when you live underneath a dictator and in a nation that's ruled by white nationalism. The days go by.
I mean,
I think we all just want to get to 2028 or so. 2020. Where's 2029? January 2029. That's what it is.
Yeah, this is worse than the worst reality drama show ever made. It is just, I'm speechless, really, because it's not really something that anybody was prepared for. Now, I don't care what people tell you, that nobody was prepared for this amount of craziness. We anticipated some craziness and some grandiosity and rabble rousing and sable raising and all of that. But this is at a level of just object craziness that he and his administration, and like Voldemort, he who shall not be named, has turned over all of the government, all of the economics, all of the border and security and ally building. I mean, he has blown up everything.
Yeah.
And it's all the while him and his cronies are making money. I was saying before we went on the air about, they were boasting the other day when the market went up 29 points, and then it went right and making statements like, oh yeah, we planned this, and then the next day it dropped like 1,600, and still I don't know what the pending today, but it looks like it's going to be down again today. So to give back all of that 29 that they got, and it's heartbreaking.
Yes.
Heartbreaking.
And you're hitting the word breaking, right? They're breaking everything. They're breaking the election system. They're breaking the stock market. When you're president, when the leader of the country is directly manipulating the stock market, which is what this looks like to me, I think that's wrong. That's just, we were in a conversation earlier this week, Z, you and I, and in New Thought, there's a tendency to always find the good. And I'm at a point where that is starting to sound an awful lot like metaphysical malpractice to me, because if you're looking at what Trump is doing to any of these systems, and let's throw our voting rights into there as well, because this SAVE Act isn't saving anything. And we're watching it happen, and good new thoughters, good metaphysicians are standing around going, well, I'm looking for the good in this. I'm looking for a way to bring more good. Okay, you keep doing that. But in the meantime, will you not stand up and say, this is broken? I got a clock on the wall back here that runs on atomic time, right? I got a clock that automatically syncs with the satellite, so it's never wrong. Unless the battery goes dead. And when the battery in the thing starts to go dead, it starts to run slow and you don't notice it. And things run a little, and you don't notice it until suddenly you look up and the clock is completely stopped because well, that's broke. That's broken. And we got to take some action to get the damn clock working. And it's not hard. You go, you take out the battery, you put in a new battery, you hang the clock back on the wall. And the cool thing about that clock is I never change the time on it. When our times change, it goes wee and it resets itself. So if it runs out of battery and it gets 12 hours behind, and I look at it and go, wow, that clock's like 8 hours behind. What's going on? I change the battery and it goes wee, and it sets itself back to right. We can't go wee with a country. You break this shit, and it's not replacing a battery to get us back to normal. We're screwing shit. We're letting this. Sorry, we're not, but we're letting this buffoon screw shit up that could very rightly affect our grandkids, and I don't even have any of those yet. And I don't think you do.
Well,
well, at least not with your recent.
I mean, I got great grands at this point, and it's have innocent kids who their whole future will be affected by the decisions and things that this cat is making. I mean, you have seniors who their 401ks have been decimated, right?
Yep.
Most people, the statistics show that most people have not saved properly for retirement in the first place. And then the little bit that they do have, a lot of it just got sucked away. I mean, I think they were saying something like on average, somewhere between 15 and 20% of people's 401ks were lost in this tariff yo-yo that they got going up and down.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking at small businesses, that bigger businesses, yes, they can weather a lot of this, right? But small businesses are gonna they don't know how to staff. I don't know whether to buy early to keep from getting the tabs, or if I buy too early and now my money's tied up and I can't make a switch. I mean, it is just criminal that this is happening, and the courts are just siding with this administration. The judicial branch is just allowing him to run roughshod over the government, suggest that judges be fired because they don't agree with what he's doing, yet he gives very little real information about why certain things are being put in place or what the evidence is that it's needed. And his puppet crowd are just shaking their head yes to everything he does.
Yeah. Yep. It's
I would suggest, get you some beans and put them in your closet.
Yep. Well, yeah, like you and I were talking about last week, it's almost gardening season here in Colorado, and or at least it's almost time to get started indoors. Don't plant anything outside yet, but uh, but we're gonna plant. We're going to plant heavy and we're going to plant big on the things that we know do really well. So come the fall, anybody needs a loaf of zucchini bread, you can knock on our door because we're going to have a ton of zucchini this year. It grows easiest here in Colorado. And truthfully, I don't like gardening. But we're at a point where we can no longer do what we want, what we like. We have to do what is necessary. We can no longer do what is easy. We have to do what is necessary to try to protect some of what's left of our democracy so that in 4 years we might have a chance to get the clock working again. This SAVE Act, dude, this thing with the SAVE Act is really scary. They're taking away voter rights.
They are trying to push us back to a time where they being white male property owners are the only thing in town.
Yeah. According to this SAVE Act, a volunteer election official could go to prison for up to 5 years even if they unknowingly help someone to register without correct documentation. And even if that voter is a citizen. Election officials should not have to worry about going to prison if they make a mistake.
I mean, and you know, you would think that I would admit this. I'm on these tariffs because I'm just this summer. Now they're going to battle with China. China just raised, it's like they're playing poker. I see your 25% and I raise you 25. Because China just raised their tariff to 125. Right. Trump's going to put theirs to 145, right? Somebody's going to fold. I mean, if we play the traditional game, somebody's got to fold in a minute, or they're going to have to go all in and show the cards, and hopefully they got the right cards. But in the meantime, I mean, imagine, I've heard of kids who had summer jobs and internships and even some possibility of full-time jobs being rescinded because the companies are not sure what's going to happen. So come the summer, everything is going to be expensive. Nobody is going to be hiring. Things are going to be higher. And it could be a long, hot summer, as they say.
Yep. It's going to be, I think it's going to be a long, hot decade.
Oh my goodness. And I mean, everything they've touched. I mean, look at they had another aviation plane clipping the other day, and our heart goes out to the family and the pilots that lost their lives in New York, who in the helicopter crash in the river. I mean, it's sad to look at the state of affairs of a country that boasts it is the best and the brightest to be in such a state of disarray.
Yep. Brother Wayne, good to see you, sir. Yeah, we are in a hot mess. There's no question about it. We are in a hot mess, and and I don't want to bust up on our friends and colleagues too much because there's a lot of great people that are doing a lot of great work right now in consciousness. And we need a lot of those great people to step forward and start doing some work in in the streets and in other places. And if anything, I think New Thought is perfectly positioned not to educate people at this point, but to support people that want to get active.
Mm-hmm.
We've been a teaching movement. Yeah. We've done a great job over the years of teaching people. And there's a lot of people out in the world that understand the New Thought philosophy, even if they're not active in a church or a community right now, or active in the movement in any way right now, but they've learned and they've understood these principles. And I do have faith that these people will start to use those principles a little bit more. Those people will start to run for school boards and community councils and other things, and these people and that more and more people will start to do something.
Here is my mantra to not just the New Thought community, but all communities that want to see a change on the upside. And that is, we have to pray as if everything depended on God or spirit or the divine intervention, but we also have to work as if everything depended on us.
Yeah.
It's a both and. You got to pray and you got to work. And if we just decide to do one or the other, it doesn't lead to the most productive, most rewarding, most uplifting outcome, because that's like trying to separate the left and right side of the brain. That doesn't work out that well when that happens.
Yeah. Yep. Brother Raymond, treat and move. Faith without action. Yes, exactly. And I want to bring Linda into this real quick. Good morning, Linda. She brings forward a really important question, and I think maybe one that if she's pondering, then I know there's others out there pondering in this movement. How do we weave spiritual principles in consideration that armed defense might be necessary?
Well,
I don't own any guns, so the truth is, if you knock at my door with guns, I'm gonna pray. I'm gonna pray that your guns don't work properly, right? But I don't know a lot of New Thoughters that keep guns around.
Yeah, you don't know a lot of New Thoughters that keep guns around that tell you about it.
That tell me about it. Yeah, that too.
I'm from the South, and I'm from the deep South.
Mm-hmm.
And let me just be perfectly clear about this. There are and it's obvious there are a lot of guns.
Yeah.
And then there are a lot of guns, and then there are a lot of guns, and this whole idea of armed surrection has been bubbling since the last time they stopped it back in what was it, 1862 or something like that? 1863.
Last time I think
in
there
this
was
country?
an I think the last armed insurrection attempt was January 6th.
Yeah, but they didn't have no guns. They just had actions. But I'm talking, if they didn't shoot them though.
Yeah, right. They didn't shoot
they
them.
May have had them,
but they had them.
They didn't shoot them.
I think if I'm still convinced if Capitol Police had opened fire, they would have returned fire. If Capitol Police would have opened fire with pepper spray and rubber bullets, I think they would have responded with real bullets. I'm glad it didn't come to any of that. But anyway.
Yeah, and so the whole thing to the question of arms direction. I mean, they are setting the stage, I believe, for that to take place. Unfortunately, by they continue to put this divide. Now we're in a situation if they just continue to screw up the economy, there could be some change of heart because when that loaf of bread goes up, everybody's got to pay the price, right? So this whole bamboozle thing that's going on right now, hopefully people on the different extremes can begin to see, wait a minute, we're all being bamboozled. They're taking advantage of all of us, and begin to say, how do we come to the middle? I may not change my beliefs a whole 100%. You may not change it, but there's got to be a space in the middle where we can do a two-step dance as opposed to a rock'em sock'em robot dance. And that has to be done very soon, I believe.
Yeah. Because fairly soon, the whole country's going to be broke except for the billionaires.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. I mean, and here's another thing I think that I'm hoping is getting some groundswell, if you will. And it's just a basic statement that we're all human in the fact that we all have to eat, we all need medical care, we all need friendship, we all have to work together on certain things. There are certain things I can do by myself, but I cannot move my couch out of my basement by myself. I need some help with that, right? And so we're in a house now, using this metaphor, where they're redirecting and asking you to rearrange your house, but you got no help to move the furniture. And that becomes an impossible task, or a task that takes so long, you just give up. And that's what they're hoping, I believe. I think they're believing and hoping that people are just going to give up and not pay attention to all of the crazy things in education and government and finance and criminal justice and free speech, and they're just creating so much turmoil on every arena of life that people are just going to get tired and sit down.
I think that's part of the plan. Yeah, I do think that's part of the plan, right? The whiplash, and we've talked about this before too, the whiplash that people are facing. He did what? He said what? What? Oh shit. Yeah, right. It's even our dear friend Linda started today's conversation with Good Friday morning will be another politically surprising day. Yeah, every day is politically surprising at this point because I cannot fathom how it is that they're being allowed to get away with this shit. Now, there are some good things, right? And I want to talk about this one too, because the gentleman that's been deported to El Salvador, every single news outlet I can find, except for a couple, have agreed that this man, and I'm sorry, I'm forgetting his name, but this man was swept up, is not a part of Trandagrade, this Venezuelan gang. It was a mistake. And it seemed like it was all so easy for us to wrap him up and send him off to El Salvador. And now suddenly we can't get him back? Well, whatever arm you twisted to get El Salvador to take those people into their supermax prison, twist that arm to get that guy back. They know where he is. This poor guy's done nothing except get a couple of tattoos. But Fox News, as of this morning, is still reporting that the Supreme Court has demanded the return of an alleged gang member. He is not an alleged gang member. You cannot yell fire in a crowded movie theater. Why can we do this to people on a national, international stage? Why? This is one of the ones that's just like, okay, if there was a misunderstanding, if you don't quite get, but everybody except for Fox and Newsmax and OAN at this point recognize this guy's not a criminal. He just happens to have a couple of tattoos honoring his mother and his father. But we want to say he's a gang member because he's not a white Christian and he's not a white and Christian nationalist.
Well, and here's, we have people now considering very seriously. There's always been talk about people moving and retiring to other countries. I mean, those kinds of conversations now are becoming more and more prevalent because people are looking around and saying, for one reason or another, because of the climate, because I can't live on what I'm retired with or whatever, are looking at moving to other countries.
Yeah.
And
are American political refugees the new right? Is this the new migration? And Trump's going to be Trump's going to be surprised when all the white people move out and all the colored people move in. All the people of color come pouring in because I'm sorry, I'm laughing and I'm saying this improperly, but it seems so hysterical to me that in a world of oneness, the objective or the opportunity is to run and hide from our own country.
There are a few programs on now, couple of good ones on PBS. One I just watched one last night called the Future of Nature, and it's a series talking about our home, this planet, and the interconnectedness of it, the diversity of it, the inclusion of it, and how small little things that we're doing are beginning to tamper with the integrity of the planet because we don't understand diversity and inclusion. Now, I know those words in certain situations are not even proper to say anymore, but the earth does not operate on somebody's crazy notion of what the word or what they think the word means. They understand that I need the ants, I need the mushrooms, I need the salamanders, I need the birds, the monkeys. I need everything for this thing to work because we're cutting down trees, we're destroying habitat that literally produces the air that we breathe, that literally helps control the weather and the water supply, the way of absorbing the sun rays that does not affect human life to a detriment. But we are very, very, very close to shifting that balance.
Right.
And we seem not to be concerned.
Yep.
At some point, we need to do a gut check and say, are we really trying to promote life, or are we trying to line a few people's pockets so that they can go, get a $100 million yacht and flaunt that as if that is what life is supposed to be about, and then make it so unattainable for everybody else that it creates havoc across the globe?
Right. I'm checking in with again with brother Ray Mott here, and he's got a rather long quote, but we'll share it here. What he's saying is, the basis is, and based on what he's learned in martial arts, perceive the way of nature, and no force of man can harm you. Do not meet a wave head on, avoid it. So, all right, maybe moving to out of the U.S. is a good idea. You do not have to stop a force. You can redirect it. Learn more ways to preserve than destroy. Avoid rather than check. Check rather than hurt. Hurt rather than maim. Maim rather than kill. All life is precious. And to me, that's part of that. It sort of addresses part of Linda's question about guns, and right is, if my aim is to do no harm, then keeping a gun in the house is just antithetical to that. Because that, if I bring a gun,
well,
if I bring a gun to a knife fight, I'm going to hurt somebody. If I bring a gun to a protest, well, the rate of the possibility somebody gets hurt is just continues higher. And Linda shared a little here too about attending the hands-off rallies, and right, there are people that are going to, if you're out marching right now, if you're out protesting right now, there are going to be agitators, and there are going to be people that want to, but if they goad us into firing the shot, whether it's a gun or a bow and arrow or with a bullhorn, if they can goad us into firing the shot, well, we've already lost the battle at that point. So,
yeah,
we got to be able to point at what's wrong. We got to be able to say this is what's broken. But I think we also have to be able to maintain that literal and figurative high ground, that literal and figurative high watch, to also equally support those that are doing the good work of keeping things going right now, that are building towards the future, that aren't letting what we have now go, that are out there scraping and clawing to keep people fed and to keep roofs over people's head. We can't ignore these.
Yeah. And
right.
And you can't ignore them. And I'm just thinking about the statement of the scenario that Raymond put out. One of the, if you look at the martial arts, all of them, and definitely all of the ones that come out of the Kung Fu system, one of the basic theories is, when they push, you pull. When they pull, you push, because you keep them off balance, and you don't allow you let them go with the energy, right? And that whole idea of, the mantra is avoid, push, maim, but at some point you may have to defend. At some point you may have to defend yourself. And the thing is, I don't come here to do harm, but if you push it to that level, then I need to be able to protect myself. I don't want to be the sheep going to the slaughter just because I wasn't prepared. I'd rather be prepared and not have an opportunity than to have an opportunity and not be prepared. And that is the ebb and flow of life. That is the yin and yang of life. There is no one-sided coin. It just does not exist in this reality. Now, somewhere else that may be the case, but in this reality, there's always a point counterpoint. And we have to be able to understand them, embrace them, and be able to reconcile. Because if I don't know there's another point out there, I have nothing to reconcile, and I continue to make my point as if it is the only point. And that's not the case.
Right.
And it's a tough decision. People that are compassionate, people that are loving, people that are conscious, To think that something drastic may have to happen or take place is a hard decision for people who have heart and care.
Yeah.
But,
Yep.
that's the way of the world.
It's there have been numerous times throughout my life where that thought, that consideration is there. Put a gun in the nightstand. Put a put a shotgun in the corner, and somebody wants to come through that window or that door, and I'm not gonna say you can't do that and you shouldn't do that, and I'm not gonna try to. But I would hope that anybody making that decision right now, would turn to prayer and would turn to the divine and seek guidance there, and seek a sense of security there. That's what I'm doing. That's what I've been trained to do. I imagine that's what you're doing. That's what you've been trained to do. I imagine that's what 90% of our colleagues are doing, because that's what they've been trained to do. And if that's what's going to allow people to sleep, but please just buy used. We don't need any more out there. The thing is, in some ways, I reflected on this the other day. If I look now, I understand. I'm going to use Facebook as an example here. Right? They're a business. They respond to the market, and they respond to their clientele and their customers, and they respond to those that are keeping their lights on. And I get that, and I understand that. But I look at how many good-meaning people are still there supporting that, because they've been led to believe that that's the only way that their business will run, or that's the only way to stay connected to family and friends. And that if they were to, and I'm guilty of this myself, right? I use it predominantly as a marketing platform for the network. I do not use it to, I do use it to kind of argue with people occasionally, but that's just a venting mechanism for myself. It's a personal venting mechanism. But we talk about things like economic boycotts and blackout days and this and that, but I don't know that any of that's effective, simply because of the way life is integrated at this point. We're so integrated that it feels almost impossible to eliminate so much of your life. So yeah, I'm thinking of meatless Mondays, right? You can take a meatless Monday now and again, and that does change the focus, and it does change the direction. And I am buying a lot less than ever before from Amazon, and I am staying away from Facebook more than ever before, and I am trying to do my best. And yet, can you truly escape all these things? I don't think so. So we have to try to use what we have towards the vision of the good. And that means leaving comments on the racists' posts. And it means not just scrolling past the things you don't agree with, but let it be known that there are things that are broken and you don't agree with.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a conversation with a dear friend of mine. We were talking about growing up in the South and looking at these conditions, and talking about, beans and rice was a staple. You had fish on Friday, and if you had enough fish on Friday, you'd have fish for Saturday morning breakfast. And Sunday you'd get some chicken, and Monday you'd have some leftover chicken. But the meal was consisted of beans and rice and vegetables, and it lasted a long time. It was inexpensive, comparatively speaking, and everybody ate and everybody was full, right?
Right.
Uh, when you look at the trends that have been said about being foodies and all of that, and trust me, I understand uh, cooking. My father was a master chef. He had three other siblings that were master chefs, and so I understand. I myself have a commercial cooking and baking license, but to go pay $40 for a little piece of something in the middle of a plate with some gravy on it and two, three little carrots on the side, um, that is not sustainable.
Gotten out of hand. Yeah.
That is not even filling. I done spent $40, $50 on that, and now I still got to go get a McDonald's hamburger and French fries to feel full.
So, all of this leads me back to something that, because if I think of community, I don't think of $40 dinner plates, right? I think of 20 people sitting around a pot of beans and rice, a big pot of beans and rice, but it's a big pot of beans and rice. And yeah, there's a little bit of chicken over there. If you want to get a couple little pieces of chicken to throw on top, go for it. If not, no worries, right? And so we want, I believe, everything's moving towards that sense of community again. And not so. Again, I think we're perfectly positioned because in New Thought, we've learned how to build community over the decades. Maybe not as effectively as we would like, but we have learned how to build community. And that gives us at least a couple steps ahead to build community, not necessarily around a philosophical, spiritual aspect, but build community around a consensus of oneness. Build community around our oneness, and not the consciousness. I like how Raymond says this: the consciousness of greed, pride, and exceptionalism.
Yeah, yeah. There's the version in the Bible that says, "Those who have eyes, let them see; those who have ears, let them hear." And for individuals at any place on the spectrum, the clarion call is being broadcasters right now. We're living a lifestyle. We're living a communal way of life. Excuse me, that is not sustainable. This is not sustainable. And for those who understand that and see that and feel that and taste that, we have to come together and begin to shift the consciousness, the actions, where I've put my energy, where I put my dollar, so that we can begin a cumulative effect of good, of change, of upliftment, of support to anybody, regardless of race, creed, color, or any of that other stuff that people use to separate something that can never be separated. That's life itself. You cannot separate life. When you do, that's called checking out.
Yep. The emperor has no clothes. and we got to remember that it's, in some ways, it's not the emperor's fault. The emperor's just stupid enough to believe the con men. And and I think we all agree who the con man is in this story.
Yeah.
And the emperor are well-meaning people. people that just want to survive, people that feel like the government's ridden their back for too long, people that feel they've been oppressed for too long. And some are not yet ready to say the emperor's wearing no clothes. Our president has no idea what he's doing. He's running around like a chicken with its head cut off, and nobody in town is willing to say, we got to stop that. Hey, we have run way long here today, Z. So let's remind people of this. Potlucks in the neighborhood and or church are a great thing. Yes, yes, yes. And if you are anywhere near Colorado, I want to personally invite you to Boulder Valley's Best Potluck. It happens on the second Sunday of every month, which means, this coming Sunday, 4:00. Reach out to me if you're in Colorado. I'll tell you how to get there. And we have a great potluck on the second Sunday. When do you guys do a potluck too, right? Z, which week are you doing your potluck community kind of thing?
Every fourth Sunday.
The fourth Sunday. So, all right. So, in the fourth Sunday, come to CSL Denver and check out what they're doing, because community is important. It always has been, but I think it's going to be the place where we can be safe and not feel like we need to arm ourselves for protection. Brother Raymond, thank you for being with us here today. Love you, love you, love you. Glad you're with us. Linda, Wayne, anybody else that's watching and chatting along, thank you so much for being with us here today. We've got a full day of broadcasting in store, and I'm not going to run it through all of it because, again, we've already run much later than we should. So I don't know, Z, maybe we're getting close to that day where this show starts going an hour, but we'll have to take a viewer poll on that one.
Yes.
On behalf of myself, New Thought Media Network, and the entire New Thought movement, I want to thank you for being with us here today, folks. Until next time, we want to wish you peace and richest blessings. Bye now.
And thanks for listening to this week's episode of Ministers Talking. We'll be back again next week with more commentary on current affairs, world events, and any other our ministers want to talk about. And if you found value here, please share our with your friends. Until next time, peace and blessings.